When you hear the word religion, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Maybe it's a bunch of rules, rituals, or really old books. But what if we looked at it differently? What if religion is actually one of the oldest, most powerful stories humanity has ever told itself?
It's pretty amazing when you think about it. All across the globe and every culture, you find this incredible variety of belief. It's like this constant thread running through the entire human experience. So, what is religion really? That's what we're going to dive into. And you might think, oh, that's just ancient history, right? But nope. Even today, in our super scientific modern world, more than 3/4 of the entire global population says they identify with some kind of religious belief. That's huge. It seems to be a fundamental part of who we are.
So what's driving this? It looks like religion isn't just something societies invent. It seems to be a response to something deeper inside all of us. That need for meaning, for connection, and for figuring out our place in this giant universe.
This quote from a 19th century priest named Isaac Hecker really hits the nail on the head. He's basically saying this drive is something that comes from within us. It's as fundamental as our need to talk to each other or be part of a group. It's just part of being human.
Okay, so let's go way back. In the beginning, religion actually had a super practical job to do. It was our first real shot at making sense of a world that must have felt totally chaotic and, honestly, pretty scary. It was a way to explain all the invisible stuff that was happening around us.
Just try to put yourself in the shoes of one of our ancient ancestors. You see the sun go up and down every day, the seasons change, people are born, and people die. Why? Without science to explain it all, it makes perfect sense that they'd think, well, there must be something else out there, some kind of gods or spirits pulling the strings.
And here's the really interesting part. This wasn't just happening in one place. Pretty much everywhere you look, early humans came up with similar ideas. There's this belief called animism, the idea that everything, and I mean everything, animals, plants, rocks, has a spirit. And that created this incredible connection, this feeling of unity between people and the world around them.
Okay, so how do these beliefs actually, work? It turns out we can break down pretty much any religion into a few key parts. One philosopher called them the dimensions of religion, and they're basically the fundamental building blocks of faith.
So we're going to look at 4 of these. The narrative, or the story the religion tells, the practice, which is what followers actually do, the code, the rules they live by, and of course, the community. This framework is a great way to see how a personal feeling can grow into a massive global movement.
First up is the story, the mythology. And it's super important to say, when we talk about mythology here, we don't mean something that's fake. We mean the big story, the grand narrative that tackles those huge questions we all ask. Where did we come from? Why are we even here? What's the point of it all?
So this story, whether it's written down in a book or just passed down from person to person, it's the bedrock. It's the foundation for the whole belief system. It's the narrative that gives everything else its meaning.
The ancient Greek poet Homer really nailed it with this one. It speaks to that deep, timeless human need for stories that are bigger than we are, stories that help us see where our little lives fit into this huge cosmic picture.
But of course, belief isn't just about what's in your head, right? It's about what you do. And that's where the next 2 parts come in, ritual and ethics. They take these big, abstract ideas and turn them into real-world actions and a shared way of living.
So you can think of it like this. Rituals are what make that big, sacred story feel real, like it's happening right now. And the ethics, well, that's the roadmap for how to live your life in a way that lines up with that story. When you put them together, they give faith its structure. They're what turn a private, internal belief into something you share and live out with other people.
Now, it's important to remember that these building blocks, the stories, the rituals, the rules, they're not set in stone. In fact, they're the very things that allow religions to change and evolve over centuries, even millennia. You see new faiths popping up, and they're almost always building on what came before.
If you look at this timeline, you can really see that evolution in action. As societies got bigger and more complex, going from small tribes to huge empires, their beliefs got more complex too. Those early, nature-focused beliefs started to develop into these large, organized religions with really detailed philosophies and laws. And you can see how they connect. For instance, the core idea of one God in Judaism became a foundation for both Christianity and Islam. And in a different path, key ideas from Hinduism were a springboard for Buddhism.
So that brings us all the way to today.
We live in this age of science and reason, right? So why is religion still such a massive, powerful force for billions of people around the world? What's going on there?
Well, there's this really interesting tension playing out all over the world. On one side, you've got tradition. It offers comfort, stability, a link to these ancient truths. But sometimes that can also mean pushing back against modern ideas. And then, on the other side, you've got the modern world, which challenges faith with science and materialism. And that can sometimes leave people feeling like there's a void, like they're searching for a deeper meaning that science alone can't provide.
But maybe it doesn't have to be a conflict. Albert Einstein, of all people, had a really cool way of looking at it. He basically said that all of these things, religion, art, science, they're all just different branches of the same tree. He saw the search for truth, whether you're looking through a microscope, holding a paintbrush, or saying a prayer, as all coming from that same deep-down human desire to make sense of it all.
So where does that leave us? As we keep evolving, as we face brand new challenges and ask totally new questions, you have to wonder, what's the future of belief? Will the old faiths change and adapt? Will totally new ones pop up? Or will we find completely different ways to satisfy that deep need for meaning? It's a fascinating question, because the human story, well, it's definitely not over yet.